free energy special interest group where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise. Hi everyone, hi, this is Crystal. Welcome to FESIG's 131st meeting. Today is the 11th of December. Yeah, I had adjourned it to the second Wednesday of this month, December, because on the 4th, the first Wednesday of the month, I was traveling, I was mid-air, so I couldn't do the meeting. So that's why we have few people attending today, because everyone's so used to the first Wednesday. It's a very special day because we are graced with one of the most famous men on the planet who has done a heck of a lot of work for humanity and helped save lives. Without much ado, I'm going to dive headlong into the introduction. Okay, so let me just share screen. Henrik, you have to give me share screen rights. Henrik, I can't share screen. I'm sorry, I passed the hosting over to Henrik because my internet connection is quite poor. So
yes, and I don't know how to do it.
I think you just go hover on the participants and you will see hover over the share screen. Press. Pontus, could you help Henrik do it? Hover over share screen and yes. If I can't share screen, I can't do this. Okay, I got it now. Thank you. I think, yeah. Right, here we go. All right, so welcome to our 131st FESIG meeting. This is the second Wednesday of the month. This is pretty unusual. As I was saying, I was traveling. So I am Crystal Gore, the founder and initiator of FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group. And I have here our co-chairs, Dr. Fred Spessel, Henrik Pontus, and Jerry. And our website is truevisionofpeace.com/FESIG.html. I have to go through very quickly now so that you can see for yourself what we are about and what we do. You can freeze screen and read it all. This has been going over and over and over with every meeting, so you know what to do when you want to know more about us. So we have here Mark Hamilton, the one and only speaker for this meeting. He's very, very uniquely creative and special as a visionary thinker, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and creator of Neothink. And I will tell you all about him in a minute after I have introduced FESIG first. So once we finish with this session, the 131st meeting, I want you to pen down, next time we meet will be 132nd meeting, which is on the 8th of January, okay, 2025. Also the second Wednesday of the month, because it's too close to New Year. And I think it's the second day of New Year, and so on and so forth. And then February will be on the 5th, the first Wednesday of the month, and so on and so forth. But the times will be like this time for the next 3 months. If you want to write to me, crystal@truevisionofpeace.com, subscribe to our channels, BitChute, YouTube, Odyssey. Whatever can't go into YouTube will go to BitChute and Odyssey. And join our Telegram group, as this is a study platform where some of the world's most brilliant minds come over to share their thoughts, their knowledge, their free energy development, and intel information. So go to our Telegram group and interact with each other, okay? So that, yeah, my internet connection's quite unstable, so I have to move on very quickly now. I won't take too much of Mr. Hamilton's time. as well as Wallace Hamilton Jr. So I just want to introduce Mark Hamilton, who's a visionary thinker, best-selling author, entrepreneur, publisher, economist, and political activist, best known for his neothink manuscripts on business, economics, politics, psychology, religion, health, self-improvement, for his neothink trilogy. Over 2 million neothink manuscripts have been sold in over 140 countries in 12 languages to a selective audience over the past 3 decades. Mark Hamilton is the son of American scientist, author, philosopher, Dr. Frank R. Wallace. Dr. Wallace was a senior research chemist for E.I. DuPont de Nemours and Company. Dr. Wallace is best known for his new tech discovery. His son, Wallace Hamilton, third generation, young Wallace Hamilton is with us as well. Please do show yourself once we consider this like a casual meeting. Third generation is following the grandfather and father's footsteps, co-creating Immortalis, dedicated to creating a prosperous society, shielded by the prime law for guaranteed safety, abundance, and health, ultimately eradicating aging and death. Wow. Hooray, that's what all of us want. Thank you, young Wallace, for bringing greatness to our platform with your high achiever, brilliant father's gracious presence. And we know that he doesn't appear anywhere else, but he agrees to appear here on our platform. And we are so honored and grateful. Thank you. Hamilton founded the Neothink Society think tank and its Neothink clubhouses, and is known for mentoring his Neothink members. Hamilton founded the 12 Visions Party, the political arm of the Neothink Society. He is also the major founding partner with the late David Jin of the Grand Canyon Skywalk Development, LLC, builders of the Grand Canyon Skywalk Glass Bridge on the west rim of the Grand Canyon. The visionary behind the Neothink Society, he is a pioneer in personal transformation and self-improvement. His work empowers people to break free from limitations and live lives filled with purpose, passion, and pure love. He has created a supportive community where members can grow and thrive, learning from his extensive knowledge and experience. Through writing books and teaching, Hamilton inspires countless individuals to pursue their dreams and live fulfilling, prosperous lives. His legacy continues to impact lives worldwide, fostering a sense of freedom, happiness, and self-discovery towards profound personal growth. Whether you're seeking financial independence, deeper personal relationships, or a more fulfilling life, his books provide a comprehensive roadmap to success. Thank you, Mr. Mark Hamilton. Over to you now, the microphone, for you to begin sharing with us your beautiful thought.
Well, thank you, Crystal, for that warm introduction. Very thorough, and I appreciate that very much. So what I would do today, what I think I would do is just give you an overview of just give you an overview of where I came from, how this all developed, how it led to where we are now with starting a new country, Immortalis. So it's exciting, and I look forward to sharing this with your audience. It's a whole new way of thinking. Of course, the name is Neothink, which means new think or neothinking, new thinking. And we'll go through that today so you get a good understanding of how neothink works, what it leads to, and where we are now. So I'll roll into this, probably take me about 30 minutes to go through an overview, and then I'll open this up to questions. So yeah, my background, I grew up, as you had mentioned, Crystal, as the son of a highly accomplished, highly regarded scientist and philosopher, Dr. Frank R. Wallace, who developed the neotech philosophy, which grew out of Ayn Rand's objectivism and a long line of Aristotelian philosophers. In neotech, Dr. Wallace identifies our human consciousness as the greatest value, that man's greatest responsibility is to cure aging and death, to preserve and not let that great value perish. So as a boy, a young boy, who greatly admired his father, who was a highly regarded scientist for DuPont and the philosopher of neotech, I felt like if he said he was going to do something, well, consider it done. So I grew up believing he would end death and we would never die. So that's how I grew up. That's where I was emotionally growing up, thinking, well, my dad's going to cure death, as a young boy, so we're not going to die. So I grew up emotionally feeling that death was unnatural, that our consciousness was the most important value, and that curing death was our most important goal. And as I grew up, I gradually learned, as I began mixing with the world and became a teenager and getting around, I began to realize that other people did not feel that way. And I had to figure out why I was the only one who felt that death was unnatural. Everyone else thought, well, you're born, you live, you die. But I didn't feel that way. So as I became a young adult, I began to learn the reasons why others didn't feel that death was unnatural. The first thing I realized was that as people grew older, they experienced stagnation, personal stagnation. And that was blocking their desire to live forever. I have a good friend who's a pilot, and at one point I brought up to him, hey, how would you like to extend your life to 130, 140, 150? And he very sincerely said, no, I wouldn't want to live that long. And that's when I began to really understand that this personal stagnation begins to block our desire for life over time. The other big obstacle I realized was political suppression. We'll get into that a little bit, that politics, the ruling class, blocks the progress that's needed to make the medical breakthroughs to live forever. And I'll explain as we go along. So, as a young man, I knew I had to fix both of those problems to achieve the ultimate goal. So in studying personal stagnation, that led me to discovering neothink. Neothink is thinking more widely, say at work or in personal life. You think more widely to create values and leave behind stagnation, because when you're involved with value creation, you're not stagnating. You're playing at life as an adult when you're involved in value creation. Now, neothink is limitless thinking, as I'll explain today, and it's accomplished a unique way. It's accomplished by building puzzle pieces. You build neothink puzzles, puzzle pictures. So most people today are stuck in perceptual thinking. So let me explain how most people think. Most people think in a see-react, limited way of thinking. Say they go to work and they see their responsibilities that have been delegated to them from management above, and they see them and they do them. They see-react. They're stuck in a boring, routine rut. After 10, 20 years doing those same see-react, that perceptual thinking creates stagnation. Humans aren't meant to live with stagnation. Now, some people do rise to a higher level of pulling together those percepts into concepts for a more powerful conceptual thinking. And then there's a few superachievers who rise to a new way of using the mind altogether. And this is neothink. It's pulling together concepts like puzzle pieces to form puzzle pictures. This is puzzle building neothinking. So I'll give you a quick recent example of the three different ways of thinking. I'll just use an example of small business. So the other day, getting ready for the holidays, I was at our local shopping center. There's a grocery store, a big chain grocery store on one end of the shopping center, and a drugstore, a chain drugstore on the other end. And in between that are little restaurants, little shops, little boutiques, and there's a bake shop. So I've walked by that bake shop for years, never have entered the bake shop, but with the holidays coming up, for the first time in years, I entered the bake shop. And it was beautiful inside. They had beautiful cakes and cupcakes and croissants and you name it, they had it. It's beautiful. But I never noticed it before, just always walked by it. So I'm going to explain to you the three ways of thinking of customer acquisition for this little bake shop. All right, so the way the bake shop was now, there was just a sign, is a tan stucco wall with a little sign at the top that said bake shop. All right, that is perceptual thinking for a customer acquisition. You know, you put up a sign, bake shop, and they hope that you come into their bake shop. That's perceptual thinking in business. Then let's just take it one step further. Let's say you had someone, the owner would go to the next level of thinking, conceptual thinking. So a concept would be, for example, and this is not what they've done, but this would be an example of a more powerful conceptual thinking. You take a monitor, right, and put it in the window and show them baking these beautiful cakes, show maybe them baking bread and showing the bread poof up when they're baking, just things to catch the passersby attention so they'll take a look over and enter the bake shop. That's a concept. That's more powerful conceptual thinking for customer acquisition. Then you can go to yet another level, and that's neothinking for customer acquisition. Neothinking is pulling together concepts into a puzzle picture. So let's envision what that might be. All right, so we've got the monitor now. That's a concept. Let's try another concept. Let's say when I walked in the bake shop, it smelled delicious. So what if the owner said, well, hey, let's get that aroma out there into the passersby so they smell it and they follow their nose right into my bake shop, right? That's another concept of getting the aroma. So you build some vents and some fans and get that fresh baked bread and the sweet pastries, the smell blowing out onto the sidewalk so the passersby will just follow their nose right into the bake shop. That's another concept of customer acquisition. Then let's think we could go to another concept. Let's go to taste and feel, right? Let's put a table out front, just a folding table, throw a tablecloth on it, and put some of our fresh baked bread and sliced delicious cupcakes. So now at 5 o'clock when the foot traffic is heaviest, people are stopping, they're tasting, and wow, that's pulling them in. So now you've got three concepts working together: sight, smell, taste. And now people, those are percepts, right? Now that we've risen them to concepts. Now these are concepts coming together into neothink, a neothink puzzle picture. I'll tell you, that puzzle picture I just drew for you right there is very simple. Neothink starts at very simple levels in businesses and personal life. Very simple. You'll always have that picture. Whenever you go to the drugstore or the grocery store, you always have that puzzle picture in your head of that delicious smell, the impressive little monitor showing them baking the bread, the feel of that warm bread, the taste of it. That increases your customer acquisition 95%. That's a neothink puzzle picture, and that puzzle picture stays in your head. Now, had they had that going on a few years ago, I probably would have been in the bake shop dozens of times, right? But that was the first time in years I'd ever entered because they were working on a perceptual level of customer acquisition. So those are your three basic ways of thinking: perceptual thinking, conceptual thinking. And you pull those concepts together into a puzzle picture, neothinking. So I use my neothink discovery to break through and write neothink books. As Crystal had mentioned, I wrote neothink books first for the self, how to turn yourself into a super achiever and unleash your full potential. That was the first book that I had written. Then I went on to business in general, how to turn your business into an engine of wealth and unleash its full potential. Then I went on and wrote about the world, how to turn your business into a worldwide empire and unleash its next level potential. And then next, which I'm working on now, is civilization itself. And I'll talk today about how civilization will reach its full potential. But as of now, we're not even close. So I'll go through the puzzle pieces and show you what our potential really is. Okay, so personally, I've sold over $350 million of my neothink books all over the world in 140 countries and 12 languages. So just realize this neothink, it works. All right, so my expanding limitless neothinking led me to my widest neothink puzzle yet, and that is starting a new country called Immortalis. As the name indicates, it's Latin for immortal. The country's greatest goal is to cure aging and death. That goal started with me as the son of my father, as a young boy, and as today in my mid-60s, this is coming to fruition. So ever since I was a boy, hearing my dad talking about this great responsibility of mankind, here we are. We're going to really go after curing aging and death. That's been my long-term goal. And as you'll see, the only path there is Immortalis. I'm going to explain that as we go through the puzzle pieces here. So, but before I dive into Immortalis and what it will be like, I'll have to begin here by saying that mankind has never, ever come close to reaching its potential, not even here in beautiful America. So in my Neothink book, Super Puzzle, it's my 1,200-page fictional trilogy, one of my bestsellers, you witness mankind reaching his potential. It's quite moving. It's quite a moving experience. Now, Immortalis, I'm going to actualize what my bestseller Super Puzzle idealized. I'm going to actualize mankind's potential. And it's very exciting. That potential is a world where everything is free. Everything, literally free, including energy itself. But let me make clear that this is not a world of socialism or communism. It's not moving in that direction at all. It's counterintuitive, but this is a world of pure capitalism. As you'll see, planet Earth has never experienced pure capitalism. Now, there's been a lot of negativity toward capitalism, and I understand all the reasons, but if I sat down and debated some politicians, for example, who feels that capitalism is destructive to human civilization, I'll be able to demonstrate why just the opposite is true. In fact, you'll see it today as I go through this. So in the future, with pure capitalism, instead of money being business owners' payoff or reward, in the future, the payoff and reward is contribution, pride, and happiness, from tangible money to intangible emotion. But I have to go through the puzzle pieces for you to understand this, so I'll do that right now. So to get to see the Neothink super puzzle, to see its puzzle picture revealing the world of mankind's full, selfless potential, I have to snap together these puzzle pieces. So I'll start here. The computer and information revolution of the late 20th and into the 21st century. So computer power. Consider the cost for computer power today. For next to nothing, you can get, say, a used phone with the computing power that only Fortune 500 companies could purchase on their mainframes not long ago. So the cost of computer power has dropped dramatically, and it's dropping towards zero, while the value is increasing toward infinity. Now, the same goes for information. Information used to be an incredibly expensive commodity, but now ChatGPT gives you all the information you need for free. So that phenomenon happened because government could not get a regulatory grip on the advancement of the super rapid growth of the personal computers, on personal computer power, as it advanced at speeds in the 20th century at such great speeds the government just couldn't figure out how to get a grip on it. It was moving too fast for government to lock it down with regulations, to politicize it. So without the typical government regulatory burdens, that technology soared and costs radically dropped. And this is not just a special phenomenon due to the breakthrough of the silicon chip. I write about James J. Hill, the railroad tycoon who opened up the entire country to development along the northern border with his transcontinental railroad without any help from the government 150 years ago, before high technology altogether. Henry Ford and his perfection of the assembly line, driving the cost to fractions, making the car and transportation affordable to ordinary families over 100 years ago. Thomas Edison bringing electric light to the world. Incredible advancements that drove down costs and drove up standards of living for humankind. Well, that was all before the anti-business, regulatory darkness that came to America with Franklin D. Roosevelt. So now we begin to see it's the regulatory government holding back progress. Everywhere, in every country, in all industries across the world, energy, health, medicine, science, technology, they're all held back by politicization, by political agendas spawning progress-harming regulations and legislation. And we've seen this regulatory suppression rise up more than ever before over the past 4 years in several critical industries. Now, recently at Balaji's Network State Conference in Singapore a couple of months ago, my son Wallace ran into scientists who are doing some amazing things for human longevity that are confidential, and I can't share them with you, but let me just tell you, they will add decades to our lives, okay? But they're being held back by regulations and legislation. They are willing to go anywhere in the world to continue their research and development. They express this to my son. But there's nowhere they can go. That's what they've said. There's nowhere we can go to do our research and development. So wherever they would go, they explain how they would be knocked down and held back by the ruling class. Anywhere they go, there's nowhere in the world where they can go to pursue their life-saving research. So you should have seen their excitement for the idea of a land-based Immortalis. Thousands of such geniuses throughout the world would have that same reaction. We just need to now let them know about it. Indeed, they, along with countless others, are unable to move forward due to all countries' anti-progress laws and regulations. We see it all the time with our contacts. Very good friend of mine, David Kekich, who has now passed. He was the founder of Foundation Life. He was very frustrated in his life because he could not move ahead with his discoveries and his research and development. He was stuck. There's nowhere in the world to proceed with their incredible research and development. The geniuses of society, they're stuck. And their creation, which I am privy to, these scientists that met my son, like I said, it would add decades to our lives. I'll give you a little example of my father, who was a very renowned scientist with 5 patents at DuPont. 50 years ago, he was involved in really a very promising cure to cancer. What they had developed was an extremely fine textile that would be impregnated with cancer-suppressing drugs. And this extremely fine textile would be injected into your bloodstream. And it would travel through your bloodstream, and it would find cancer tumors. And it would encase, it would surround the cancer tumors in, let's call it a man-made coffin, to turn malignant cancer into a harmless dying disease within your body and no longer a threat. Now, this was DuPont, the world's largest chemical company. But cost-prohibitive regulations 50 years ago stopped that project that my father was part of. So even as a young man, I began to feel the problem with the ruling class. Now, all of the ruling classes of all countries suppress progress with their legislation and regulations. I only grew to learn more about that as I grew up. So it's always been like that. And the people accept it. Why? Because it's always been like that. It just seems normal now to people. All civilizations have lived in the same dimension. This dimension with a ruling class with the power to regulate and legislate the people. But there is another dimension on our planet that has never been seen before. Okay? And we're going to get to that here. Let's start with what holds us back? This is another puzzle piece. What gives the ruling class such power to hold back progress? It's a common denominator among all countries, among all ruling classes. So, what gives the ruling class its destructive power to hold us back? And the answer to that is initiatory force. Initiatory force is the opposite of self-defense force. Now, any government, its only value should be limited to protection, self-defense force. But governments, the ruling class, have gone beyond those parameters. All ruling classes throughout history entered into the area of initiatory force, which means they're allowed to initiate force against its people. So initiatory force has been allowed in all ruling classes and is the scourge of mankind. I want to call it out. Initiatory force is the scourge of mankind. Without it, there could no longer be agenda-backed, politicized legislation and regulation at holding the geniuses of society back. So with that being identified, next we say, well, how can we remove it? Or how could we possibly remove it? And is it needed? I mean, we think initiatory force is in our ruling class. We think it's needed because we've always had it. And we're made to believe by our leaders that they must have that power over us. So it's all we've ever known. So we accept it. But let me ask you straight up, why should one adult have the power to initiate force on any other adult or their business? They should not, including politicians and regulatory bureaucrats. So this brings us now to two further puzzle pieces to the super puzzle. First, the tool to remove initiatory force is the prime law. It is the fundamental natural law of protection and is the constitution of Immortalis. So, Wallace, can you open a book and read the prime law for us? I don't have a copy of it right here in front of me. Sorry about that. I just realized I didn't have a copy. I thought I had the prime. I thought I had the prime law, but I have the prime pledge. That's something else. So my son's going to call up the prime law right now, and he's going to read it to you. Then we'll talk about how that is the tool to remove the scourge of mankind that has held us back for centuries.
What to do with that? Well, then, Wallace.
I'll hand it over to you, Wallace, for the prime law.
All right. So the prime law, the fundamental law of protection. The preamble. The purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. The function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. The prime law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, or coercion by any person or group against any individual, property, or contract. Article 1. No person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual, self, property, or contract. Article 2. Force is morally and legally justified only for protection from those who violate Article 1. In Article 3, no exceptions shall exist for Articles 1 and 2.
All right. Thank you, Wallace. So that's now that prime law, just so you understand, my father,
Awesome.
my father, my brother, and I worked for decades developing the prime law because we had to get down to the fundamental underneath all life. And that's the fundamental, what I call the fundamental natural law of protection. protecting the individual. And the individual, by the way, is the smallest of all minorities, minority of one. So once you protect the individual, everyone is equally protected. So again, the prime law is the constitution of Immortalis, my new country. And it removes initiatory force, as you heard, from government. So now the next puzzle piece is this. You must understand how this new dimension of civilization would work. So I say new dimension because the prime law removes the ruling class. You see, the ruling class can only exist through initiatory force, which includes forced tax collection. And every civilization on earth today and throughout history lived under a ruling class, under leaders who would exercise initiatory force against the people and their businesses. The ruling classes all have initiatory force built into their political structure. And that's the key identification, removing that initiatory force. Then we do not have a ruling class. It can't exist because it doesn't have the power to rule over you. Immortalis does not and never can have a ruling class with the prime law constitution. Everything in Immortalis is based on mutual value exchange. So with that in mind, realize now that government becomes a protection service. So I'll explain in a moment how it will collect its revenues without force-backed taxes. It'll be the first country in history with no force-backed taxes. So in Immortalis, we'll get to that in a minute, but start imagining this puzzle piece. In Immortalis, your dollars, or whatever currency we have, do the voting, not elections. So you don't go through these cycles where the country can be torn down when it gets caught in a bad election cycle. But every day, every moment, the citizens decide where to put their money for whoever's providing them with the greatest. What's the purpose of government? Remember, protection, providing the greatest protection. So your dollars, or your currency, is doing the voting. So there would be, in other words, you'd have a 10% tithe. A tithe is a voluntary payment. And I'm going to explain in a moment why this will be the first civilization where people gladly and voluntarily will pay 10% of their income to what we're calling, air quotes, government. Okay? And they're doing this, they're putting their money toward the best values for protection. And protection, again, is the only proper function of government. So the competitive nature of this service drives the best values to the top. We're going to find out in DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, in the upcoming administration, just how much the government wastes and squanders your money. So now, as I describe what living in Immortalis would be like, you'll understand why citizens would gladly and voluntarily pay a 10% tithe. So let's go into this puzzle piece. In this civilization, for the first time on planet Earth, the geniuses of society, like the people my son met, the scientists my son met, are just geniuses out there that, the Elon Musks of the world, the Steve Jobs, the Sir Richard Bransons of the world, the Henry Fords. These geniuses of society now will be free of the burdensome political regulations and legislation. They'll be free to bring their accelerating values to the world without being held back. Now remember, back to the beautiful puzzle piece in the relatively free from regulations computer and information revolution I talked about earlier. Prices for computer power and information were driven down to fractions towards zero, while the values such as computer power and information raced toward infinity. So with no ruling class, with no government grip, no regulatory grip, no political agendas, that's how it's going to be in Immortalis. No ruling class. So this phenomenon will spread not just to computers and AI and information, but it's going to spread through and across the entire industrial landscape. So in this purely free civilization, never seen before on Earth, the people would become universally wealthy, just as we became computer power wealthy. So costs in Immortalis would be driven so low that we will rise in our wealth power, our purchasing power, as prices are driven down and value is driven up. So, and that means we begin to become wealthy. Everyone. There wouldn't be a poverty or poor class. Everyone would be wealthy in Immortalis because the cost would be driven towards zero. We'll get more into that in a minute. And this phenomenon would happen to all industries because it's across the entire industrial landscape now with no ruling class, no burden of government. It's off their backs, the genius's back. And that includes the health industry. With no more ruling class political agendas, no more of those regulations and legislations on their backs, holding back the amazing research and development, say, of these scientists my son met in Singapore. Everybody's free to race ahead. Well, progress would accelerate and fatal diseases would be conquered and cured. Diseases like cancer, heart disease, and yes, aging, too, would be cured in our lifetimes. So it wouldn't be something way out there in a distant, fictional future. No, it'd be right here, right now, in our lifetime. You know, just think, my father's, I can't ever get this out of my mind, my father's incredible project at DuPont, curing cancer with those extremely fine textiles impregnated with cancer-curing drugs. 50 years ago, my friends. Think of all the lives we lost since then to cancer. Another thing that would happen in Immortalis is crime would go away. It'd just go away. Think about it. With everyone living wealthy lives, most of the motivation for crime would just vanish because most crime is committed for money. People will be wealthy in Immortalis, so there's no more motivation for money. And any other motivations for crime? Well, the prime law, what's the prime law? It's swift and harsh punishment for initiatory force. The punishment would be swift, it would be unforgiving, and crime would just evaporate, and really crime would just exist in theory at that point in Immortalis. So now, as all people in this new dimension of civilization become wealthier and wealthier, healthier and healthier, safer and safer, well, first they will be more than happy to voluntarily pay 10% of their income to the system that made them wealthy, healthy, and safe, to the protection services we'll call government, that provide the conditions that bring the people so much wealth, health, safety, and frankly, happiness. So they want to keep that in place, what brought them such a great life. So this sounds like a huge thing, voluntarily paying to the government. But I think now I've just shed light through this puzzle piece as to how that's only the natural way in Immortalis. Okay, so for the first time, government would exist without forced taxes, without initiatory force, with a voluntary tithe. Now, let's explore what's happening with everyone becoming more and more wealthy as technology drives down costs of fractions towards zero. At some point, the people, including the business owners, would become so wealthy with such explosive purchasing power that greater and greater profits become less and less important because everything is so affordable. And people are so wealthy. They can afford everything they need and more. So let's see where this is leading us here. So in this society now of pure capitalism, what do business owners seek to motivate them? Remember, profits are no longer so important in this wealthy world. So what would motivate business? What would motivate me? What would motivate you? What would motivate entrepreneurs if profits is no longer the driving force? Think about that. Well, they would become motivated by their ability to create values that help others, They'll become motivated by their feeling within of contributing important values to society and how that resonates emotionally within, the pride, the admiration, the happiness inside. Business owners would begin to shift from being motivated by profits to being motivated by helping others. Let that sink in. This is where pure capitalism will take us. Quite the opposite of the critiques on capitalism. But we've never been in a world where pure capitalism was available, because we always have lived under a ruling class with its regulatory controls. So, as shocking as it may seem, that is the end result of pure capitalism, what I call the beautiful ecosystem of mankind, achieving happiness within by creating values for others. So now you can see how the outlook and role of money is shifting in this new civilization, Immortalis, from tangible rewards to emotional, spiritual rewards. Imagine the driving force of the economy, the engine of the economy shifts from money, profits, wealth, to contribution, pride, happiness, from tangible wealth to spiritual wealth. That was an epiphany when I built this neothink puzzle picture in my mind while writing my 1,200-page bestseller, Neothink Super Puzzle. It became so clear and so obvious once I built the Neothink Super Puzzle in my mind. Well, I realized it was my life's mission to make my vision a reality. And this is why I've begun Immortalis with the prime law as its constitution. My 1,200-page trilogy super puzzle gives us a look into what Immortalis will be like and what we will accomplish. And to me, the most important goal is seen in its name, Immortalis, which, as I said, is Latin for immortal. Remember, the greatest value in the universe is consciousness. Therefore, the greatest responsibility of mankind is not to allow consciousness to perish. When the geniuses of society are not held back, when they will rapidly cure cancer, cure heart disease, and then they will cure aging and death itself. So my Neothink Super Puzzle shows me a society in which people are wealthy, healthy, and crime-free, and filled spiritually with self-peace, pride, and happiness, so that they want to and are suited to live eternally. Not like most people today who are stuck in a routine rut of stagnation. Things will be very, very different in Immortalis. And so now I'm on a mission to turn my puzzle picture into reality by way of Immortalis. It is currently a network state, a digital country, and we plan for land sovereignty within 10 years. Now here's one scenario of how that might go. So first, let me point out that there are many billionaires who don't want to die. Google it later, billionaires who want to live forever. Google billionaires who don't want to die. You'll be shocked at who turns up on your Google search. Now, they pour many millions into longevity research and development. And I don't doubt we will eventually achieve the cure to aging and even death, but not in their lifetimes. Not with our ruling classes holding back freedom and progress. And not dying, realize this, not dying is the most important goal in those billionaires' lives. Just take a look. Now, the reason I say it won't happen in their lifetimes is all progress today is stuck in what I call the loop. You see, the ruling class controls everything for their own agendas and payoffs and power. So progress is always held back, stuck in the loop. Just when it seems we have a longevity breakthrough, and this has happened over and over and over again, it gets yanked back down by the ruling class. Now, for example, a quarter century ago, longevity experts were saying we were a few years away from arresting aging. Remember that? At the turn of the century, we're a few years away. We're 7 years away. And yet today, a quarter century later, we still have not gone to the next breakthrough level in longevity, and we're still saying the same things we did a quarter century ago. And it's because, I've identified this now, it's because of the ruling class holding back and yanking down progress, the loop. Other examples of the loop are those, the freedom, longevity-driven chartered cities, Prospera and Vitalia. All their progress was just yanked back down by the Honduras ruling class, the loop. The only thing that can stop the loop is the prime law. And why is that? The loop is enabled by initiatory force of the ruling class. Without initiatory force, there is no loop. All right, let me back up to these billionaires again. So here's a few names of those billionaires who want to cure aging and death and who invested many, many millions, up to hundreds of millions each, into research toward curing aging. So here are just a few. Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Larry Ellison, Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, Sir Richard Branson, Brian Johnson. Do you recognize these names? Amazon, Google, Oracle, Facebook. You recognize Virgin? Recognize these names? These are the most wealthy people in the world. And I'd throw Elon Musk in there too because of his Neuralink. Right? These are the richest people in the world. Now, do those names mean something different? Yes, they do. Because these people are the richest and most powerful and influential people on our planet. And their millions, hundreds of millions, are caught in the loop. Now, these people are very smart. They're very logical people who use neothink. These people all use neothink. Now, once they get exposed to Immortalis and its prime law, they will understand something critical. And that is, to cure aging and death in their lifetime, they need to break free from the loop. Yeah, they might eventually cure aging in today's world with their hundreds of millions in today's world of power-seeking ruling classes, but not in their lifetime. The loop stops it. And we have the proof over the past quarter century. We should have been there by now. I'm surrounded by people, you know, the RAD conferences at James Stroll, and we're all very frustrated that progress has basically been at a standstill for the past quarter century in this world of high technology. But without the power-seeking ruling class, then cured aging and death will happen in their lifetime. The loop is broken. And only the prime law breaks the loop, because the prime law removes initiatory force. Immortalis would very quickly become the medical mecca of the world. And at some point, those world's richest men, they'll join us. It's a line of logic. It will happen. Medical research and development, the geniuses of society, their medical businesses and projects, they'd all move to Immortalis once we're a land-based sovereign nation. They'd all move to Immortalis to get the ruling class off their backs. Just like the scientists Wallace met, they're looking up for a place to go where they can pursue their purpose in life. Their purpose which rises above profits. It's their drive to help humanity. Then and only then, in Immortalis, without a ruling class, can longevity advance at the speeds necessary to cure aging and death in our lifetime, in those billionaires' lifetime. So I do predict that once we get Immortalis more known and established, that those billionaires will join us. It's inevitable. And with that, I've given you a number of puzzle pieces here. And now, when you go to joinimmortalis.com, you'll be able to see the full puzzle picture. That's where you would go to learn more about Immortalis. It's joinimmortalis.com. You'll be able to see the full puzzle picture right there at joinimmortalis.com. And with that, I'm going to conclude my talk and open this up to questions. Actually, before I do that, I do want to add just one more thing because it's very relevant at this point in time. And that is, we're entering a great era now with the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Dramatically cutting the size and power of the ruling class will open the people's eyes to the cult-like nature of our ruling class. Now, why do I say cult-like? A cult controls people's lives and manipulates their minds to benefit the cult leaders, to boost the leaders' money and power. When DOGE begins dramatically cutting back the power and size of our ruling class, well, the people will finally see. Their eyes will open to the cult-like relationship the ruling class has with the people. So DOGE will be staging for Immortalis, in essence. It'll be preparing the people for the new dimension of civilization that has no ruling class at all. DOGE will go a long way toward breaking the spell, the cult-like spell, undoing the brainwashing of the public on our way to end this cult, the ruling class. So the people will become ready for Immortalis, for a purely free country with no ruling class, with no initiatory force, where everyone becomes wealthy, healthy, and safe, and where in time profits become less needed and get replaced with the need for contribution and pride and happiness. And this pure capitalism, eventually the business owners will create not for the profits per se, but for the emotional benefits of contribution to society, pride, and happiness. So I ask you, is this utopia? No. It's very real. It's Immortalis. You may join our community, as I said, at joinimmortalis.com. We hope to see you in the Immortalis community. Now, my son Wallace and I would be happy to open this up and answer any questions. And thank you. Thank you for joining us.
At last we got some solutions here through you,
Some
of
solutions.
course. Yes. Hang on a minute. Let me just share screen with how to find you, how to find Immortalis. Okay. So here we are. This is the website, right? Wallace, you want to walk people through it? Shall I stop sharing while you can?
Why don't you walk people through it, Wallace?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you got screen sharing rights? Henrik, would you give Wallace screen share rights?
Give it to my father. Give it to screen sharing rights to Mark Hamilton, and then I'll do it on that computer.
You want to see? You want the mouse here? There you go.
I'll just switch cameras.
Okay. Would you like to sit here?
Well, you know what you said, Mark. It's such a relief. The whole world needs to hear what you said. And we're going to publish this video, this recording of, all right, going to share it far and wide. Go on then, Wallace, if you're ready.
Yes, here we go. So this is joinimmortalis.com. This is the homepage.
Wallace, would you be able to up your volume so we can hear you? Yes, that's better.
Okay, here we go. All right, so this is the Join Immortalis homepage, and this is where you can find out all the information about Immortalis, about our mission, what we're doing, and the prime law, which is the Constitution. So you can see here, if you just scroll down, it gives you more information about what some of our goals are: curing crime, curing fatal diseases and aging, and curing poverty. You can watch a video about this new country, and it talks more about our mission and the prime law. Some of our targets here: we've reached over 600 members. Actually, that's now 700 members, and we launched this just about 3 months ago, and so
Hang on a minute. Your target is 600 members to become founding members, right? So now at the 600 membership, you cut off. So the rest of them are no longer founder members?
You can become a founding member up to the first 1,000th member. But this is just our current target, and we actually just hit the 600 mark recently. And then
It was a very soft opening. We're going to have thousands soon.
And yes, this was technically kind of like a soft launch or beta launch. We didn't actually advertise this to our people yet, and we just kind of streamed it live. And then we have already now 700 people who've signed up. And very shortly, my father is going to reach out to all the members who've been a part of his club throughout the last several decades. And we're going to get several thousand on pretty quickly. And here's more information about our roadmap. This is inspired by Balaji, who was the CTO of Coinbase. Now he lives, I believe, in Singapore. He conceptualized the idea of what's called a network state, which is a new way of building countries in the modern era. Because in the past, to create a new country, typically you'd have a lot of destruction and loss of life, such as revolution and war, also crazy elections that typically use dirty means to happen, to change governance models and constitutions. And so everything besides countries, homes, corporations, companies, if you want to start fresh, you have the ability to do so. The only thing that you don't have the ability to do so is new governance models in countries. And so we are following a roadmap on how to achieve sovereignty and actually create a sovereign nation of Immortalis recognized by other countries. And then here's the prime law. You can find it here. And this is the catalyst of what makes Immortalis work. This is everything that makes Immortalis able to achieve our goals. And so this is a huge centerpiece of what we're working on, and finally breaks the loop of the ruling class and banishing initiatory force for the first time on planet Earth. And some FAQs and additional information down here. You could follow Mark Hamilton on social media. And to join, you simply just click Become a Founding Member, and it will bring you to a simple form you could fill out with your name and where you live, just your city and state and country. And there is an agreement to join the community, and it's simply that you agree to uphold the prime law, which means you will not initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual property or contract. That is the agreement that you have to make to join Immortalis and join the community. It's simply you will not force another human being to do something they don't want to do. And I think every person can agree to that, unless you have bad intentions. And that's simply it. And once you complete this form, you are now a founding member. You join the community, and you will be brought to instructions on how to interact and contribute to the community after that.
We'll also explain it's free, and that we don't charge the 10% tithe until we actually have our land-based country.
Yes, and this is, I don't know if you just heard that because the microphone's a little bit away, but
no, we couldn't hear what your dad was saying.
Okay, it is completely free to join. There's no tithe or anything, because we until we have a land-based actual country, that won't be necessary. And so you are joining the community here. You are not applying for citizenship yet here. There is a way to get pre-citizenship once you join the community, but this form to join is joining the Immortalis community to become a member of our community who wants to create a new country governed by the prime law to free
Eventually
humanity.
we will have a land-based sovereign nation for Immortalis.
Yes, our 10-year goal is to buy land, purchase territory, and then seek diplomatic recognition as a sovereign entity. And then step 8 is finally realizing the Immortalis vision.
And you'll be issuing a passport.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
And then I'll pass it.
something. Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, for years now, everybody realized that this whole control system, the initiatory force, as your dad puts it, from the ruling class, is just way too much, and it's so unjust, and that all those who are awakened and all those who are, well, star seeds, space showers, and knowledge seekers and all these people, they are setting up groups, and they have this ambition of setting up sovereign nations all around. So we were also thinking those who were tinkering with free energy wanted to have a breakaway civilization, so no authorities breathing down our necks while we're doing all this. As your dad was mentioning, it's such a shame and a waste when scientists, brilliant minds, were developing things like, the anti-aging stuffs that takes away diseases and pain and aging. It's not given a chance to complete it and to make full, and to extend it to the people for the benefits of it. Unfortunately, and here you're talking about Immortalis, wonderful. Don't let me interrupt. If you want to complete doing the presentation of Immortalis, go ahead. I'm just so excited. Thank you, Wallace. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. That actually was that was all for the website and how to get involved and find out more information. So yeah, we can open up the floor to more questions or anything that you guys have. My father would be happy to answer them. I will as well.
Oh, I'm sure your dad's so proud of you that you're doing this. You're following his footsteps and your grandfather's footsteps as well. You're doing very well. And I must thank Red. Red is one of the members of physics right from the start, way back in 2017 when we first started FRES. Red was also one of the Cash Foundation's Knowledge Seekers Group members who started with us from day one. And that's why he knows what we're doing here. And he really condoned our mission. And he talked about us. And that's how you appear to grace our platform here, Mark. And we thank you. And we are so grateful and honored to have you talk about the solution, which is so awesomely needed by humanity. And if I may say,
thank you, Crystal.
if I may say,
well, thank you, Crystal.
I've
thank you. I mean, thank you. I was honored to be here on your show, and I look forward to our relationship going forward.
Oh, wonderful. I'm sure there will be a lot of our members hopping into Immortalis. I'll be the first one as well to sign up. Oh, it's so beautiful, the concept and the prime law and how you manage to abolish the initiatory force of the rulers. That is so much needed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what? When I was researching you, because I do that a lot, I spend a lot of time doing that on speakers before I would be able to chair a good meeting with good questions. So I came across an article, if I could be allowed to share here. The article is really awesome about you. I don't know if you knew about this article. Let me share screen. Okay. So I don't know if you're aware of this article. Let me show this one, this article. Are you aware of this? My 98-year-old mother-in-law gets
Yes,
invited to
yes,
join the secret society. What is it?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
this was in 2023, March, and the writer tout you as the most famous man in the world. And look at
Right,
you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
And so
you.
I told my family, hey, we got the most famous man in the world in this meeting. Would you like to attend? And they're all very shy. So folks,
Well,
yeah, I could put a link then inside one of these days. Well, so I read about you and how when you were young, you were very fascinated with the Bones and Skulls and Bones Society. And you
oh
were
yes,
very excited about the idea of the secret society. And
yes,
you were also fascinated with the Bohemian Groove
yes.
uh
Bohemian Grove.
club.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, but these are dark and satanic. I mean, did you manage to infiltrate and get in there as a spy? Because you must know the dark before you can know the light or whatever. So they say. So it's like you need to know what they do and how they
Yeah,
operate
I
and all that.
I'm
Infiltrate.
just familiar. I'm not say in any of those societies, but I'm just very familiar with them, with secret societies in general. And for decades, I ran my operation as a secret society. You could only get in by invite only, but there was nothing nefarious. It was more from the standpoint that when you understand how I am going to end initiatory force in the ruling class, how they turn on me, and we've had our battles against the government, against the ruling class. We've come out ahead, but it's been a challenge. So really, my people, I spent my life searching for the searchers of the world, people who are searching, because I was a searcher. And so I would reach out, I would write letters and invite people into my private club. So my private club had or has 2 million people total over the decades. And we've operated and just this year, Crystal, for the first time, I've decided to start coming out to the public, and I'm going to be accelerating that process simply because I felt it was time. I felt the world was going in the wrong direction too aggressively. And I do feel a lot of relief for the new administration and with people like Elon and Vivek coming in and doing this reduction of the ruling class. That's a huge relief. But yeah, I had to operate more or less in secret or in private most of my life, simply because the ruling class doesn't like me, doesn't like what I publish. My books, I have sold, actually it's 3 million, over 3 million copies, 2 million members, over 3 million copies of my books. And these are rather expensive books. They're gold embossed because they were meant for my members in my secret society. So they're keepsakes. I call them heirlooms. They're heirloom packages. They're leather bound, gold embossed. But yeah, had to operate in secret until this year. Now I'm going public for the first time.
As I said, we are so honored and lucky to allow ourselves to be, to have the honor to be chosen as a platform that you are first
Actually,
coming out to
yes, you're
speak.
right. You are the first, right,
Oh,
Wallace? She's
yay,
the first,
hooray.
yeah. You are the first.
Thank you, Wallace.
Of course.
Oh,
I'm honored to
anyway,
be here.
I guess it's meant to be because we are having this divine mission together. We march together as a team, as the
Yes.
force to
Yeah.
abolish the initiatory force by the ruling class. Yes, as you put it.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
100%.
I'm also excited that you have decided to come out. But why now? And why not much, much, much earlier? Is it because you feel that now is the time that it is safe to come out? Is it
No,
because it's got something?
it was actually quite the opposite. I felt that it's just I had to do it because particularly the last 4 years here in America, I was worried about the the dive into socialism and toward communism. I was very, very concerned about that. As a matter of fact, it was perhaps the most dangerous time for me to come out, but I just felt it had to be done. Now, like I said, I'm very relieved that we have this DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, coming around here, because I think this is going to do a lot of the work that I was planning to do. This is going to do a lot of work. It's, like I said, it's going to be staging for Immortalis. It's going to be deprogramming the people from this brainwashing that we need the government, we need these leaders who use initiatory force against us and our businesses. So it's an exciting time. I do feel a lot of relief. I do feel much safer now coming out. So it's a good time. I really look forward to the next couple of years.
Wow, wonderful. We can always have you back again as well to talk more about your mind.
Absolutely,
I mean, you got a very, very, how shall we put it, very evolved, very high level thinker of the future, and how you bend thoughts and consciousness is what we need in this world right now, because it's the war of the consciousness, isn't it? The initiatory force that is forced upon us by the ruling class. It's using a lot of tricks on the consciousness, and they do all the tricks that they could to bend that to their will. Not
I like
giving
your
us the
wording
freedom
there.
to, yeah.
I like your wording, tricks. That's exactly right. Look at what Elon Musk just said. You know, first of all, Elon is someone who really appreciates consciousness. You know, he talks about multiplanetary exploration, and he talks about how precious consciousness is and how easily consciousness can be wiped out. Of course, he's referring to the nuclear decision threshold, which we're right at the brink of that now, where we have the power to destroy consciousness on Earth. And we need to surpass that with rationality, rational thinking. But just back to like these regulations, look at what Elon just said. For him to send up his rockets, he had to do pass all these regulations to be sure his rocket might not land on a, what was it, Wallace, a shark, a whale or a shark, and if he weren't the richest man in the world he's an incredible neothinker, without his ability to run circles around the ruling class, we wouldn't see what we see today coming from Elon. But yeah, he's the first in line, and that's why he's in head of DOGE, to get rid of this regulatory ruling class that we've suffered under since the beginning of time.
We really appreciate what he does for humanity. He's like way ahead in thinking and doing as
He's
well.
a neothinker.
He's actually doing. Oh, he's one of your members, huh? Right.
Well, I can't say, so I can't speak to that.
No wonder. Oh, you're just so humble. Say, as an alchemist of a futurist thinker that you are, journeying with us in the front line of the awakening in this false illusionary matrix world, I understand neothink is created as a way of getting the trapped out of the helplessness of the convoluted confusion and trauma. What do you see ahead? Where are we heading as a species at this critical juncture, where millions of exhausted souls are choosing to exit the 3D existence?
Well, I'm very optimistic now, but I do want to underscore something. We are at Earth's nuclear decision threshold, where we could wipe out conscious life through nuclear annihilation. Now, all civilizations throughout the universe, advanced civilizations, have reached their nuclear decision threshold. Now, in order to survive it, they have to purge irrationality, which really comes down to dishonesty. They have to purge that, and we're saturated with dishonesty with our ruling classes. And in order to survive our nuclear decision threshold, so Russia, China, America don't unleash their nuclear weapons and wipe out conscious life on Earth. In order to do that, We must move past dishonesty and the scourge of mankind, which is initiatory force. Once we're able to purge dishonesty, and that's a tall order. That goes back to my father's neotech. His philosophy deals with how we overcome the scourge of mankind, initiatory force, which is based on dishonesty, through, and he calls that the mind disease, the only mind disease of consciousness. And the way past that is through what he calls fully integrated honesty. We must reach that point on Earth to survive our nuclear decision threshold. I'm optimistic, but we are at a critical phase of our planet, of our humankind at this moment. And again, that's why I've gone public. We are right at the brink of our nuclear decision threshold. The next few years are critical for our survival.
You said nuclear decision threshold. Are you saying that we are still going to be expecting a World War III with a nuclear bomb?
We are right there, Crystal, right on the brink. We're right there. And that's very unsettling. But the positive signs are what just happened with our election, with Elon and Vivek taking over Doge. This could go a long way in bringing us world peace and stability, and we'll have to see what happens over the next year to 2 years. But we're right there. We will be so elated and, I guess you should say, grateful if we get past our nuclear decision threshold without succumbing to irrationality. We're
So
right there.
You're saying that we are not to be too comfortable with the so-called prime directive of no nuclear boom, because we are surrounded, our planet is surrounded by millions and millions of ET spaceships around us to make sure that no nuclear bombs will be dropped. Possibly, are you saying that that's a lie? Is it disinformation that it could not be stopped?
Well, first of all, I do believe in advanced consciousness throughout the universe. There's no doubt. And those who can travel through, throughout the universe are much more advanced than we are, human beings. They're maybe millions, maybe billions of years more advanced than we are. The universe is, 13 billion years old. We've had consciousness on Earth really for 3,000 years. When you understand the full meaning of consciousness, we've been conscious beings. In other words, we've been able to introspect and make our decisions, not a reactive animal to nature. 3,000 years ago is evidence in the literature that we have through the Bible and through the epics such as the Iliad and the Odyssey. We are, for the past 3,000 years, have the ability to introspect, go into an inner mind space and make decisions, and not just be automatically reacting animals for 3,000 years. So stop to think how far we've gone in 3,000 years. It took us 3,000 years to control nature on a large level, say like Hoover Dam, controlling the Colorado River. Yet it took us only 33 more years to get to the moon. So conscious knowledge advances exponentially. And we're at that right now with AI. I mean, we're almost advancing knowledge, approaching the speed of light, if you will. So imagine conscious life thousands, millions, billions of years more advanced than we are. Yes, there are conscious life all throughout the universe. Now, would they stop us from dropping nuclear bombs? Well, I don't know if we can go so far as to say that. I think that is self-responsibility. That's up to us to make sure that that does not happen.
Well, think for a moment, the ruling class might not be Homo sapiens sapiens. They wouldn't follow the law, prime directive.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. I need to pass the microphone over to our co-chair, Dr. Fresel, and then the rest of the members here could just, unmute yourself and ask questions through Fres. Fres, over to you.
That's good.
Well, thank you very much. I like your presentation, and I'd like to, from the end of the presentation, loop it back to the beginning. And you talked about personal stagnation, and personal stagnation causes a lot of other things to happen, and we call it maybe destructive personal practices or behaviors. And this gets into things like drug addiction, alcoholism, things like that, or just slovenry, where we just want to sit in front of a computer and just stare into the abyss. How do we achieve this, getting past this personal stagnation problem?
Okay. Well, the way I've defined it is this. All animals, including human beings, are happiest when they're on their essence. I used this example. My dogs were in the backyard, and they scared up some rabbits. And so they were, they had their hunting breed. So they're chasing these rabbits around, and their tails are wagging so aggressively. That interferes with your hunting, doesn't it? Looking at my dogs, and I realized, well, the reason their tails were wagging, they were so happy, is because they were on their essence at that moment, their essence as hunters. So now let's go to us human beings. And I've identified what the essence of a human being is. The essence of human beings is value creation. You see, we're the only animals on our planet that can create values, create something that will benefit others. We can create. We're creative beings. So what I do with people who are stuck in stagnation, I try to shift their life to, and I have specific tools for doing this, to where they are now becoming value creators. They're creating values. And you should see the transformation that people will go through once they become value creators, instead of what I'll just call value producers, where let's say they're in a company where they're doing these same staid responsibilities every day, day after day. Or my friend, the pilot I was referring to, every day for decades he was flying his commercial jets. Sounds like a real glamorous life, right? But he became very stagnated as a person. So I introduce people in ways to, let's say they find a hobby, or they want to try an entrepreneurial endeavor. I show them how to get on this vector of value creation. And the transformation is unreal. Because for the first time, like the dogs wagging their tails when they're on their essence, when they get on their essence, they're suddenly feeling and filled with happiness.
Excellent. And I agree. For those of us that got to do what we want to do day in and day out, it's ecstatic. It's really, really a lot of fun. And I wish everyone had the ability to do, creatively the thing they want to do the rest of their entire existence. One of the things that you brought up that was really cool, and the thought for me came in many, many, many years ago when I was looking at societies that basically blew themselves apart. And how do we, as today modern folks, do similar things to keep our society from blowing up, from just, self-destruction? We have that power as people through our vote of our money, where we spend our money. That's one of the ways that we have a lot of power. It's better than protesting, it's better than that kind of stuff. But the other societies in history, they voted with their feet. And they were the people that walked away from this, what you talk about in your neothinking is this how do you get rid of this force? And one of it was walking away, and this is kind of the basis of what you're doing. I'm going to thank you for what you brought in today, let you comment, turn it back to Crystal, and then we'll work with question and answers from the rest of the group.
Yeah, and that's a great point you just made too about walking away. Instead of giving, when you challenge head on, and believe me, we have challenged head on in the past. When you challenge head on, I've learned over the decades that you're actually giving power to the destructive forces. When you remove yourself from their equation altogether, which is what we're doing now with starting Immortalis, it's sort of like, I guess you could say, like in Atlas Shrugged, right? When they left civilization and went to Galt's Gulch. Then you don't feed their power. And that is what Immortalis is going to do. I do believe Immortalis is going to be very successful. It's fledgling at its initial phases now, but I do see that the future of Immortalis is going to be quite world-changing.
Excellent. Let me see if I can pull up some
there are several questions in chat from David. David can't speak up, nor does he has video.
Okay.
Crystal, would you read the first one from David, and then I'll come in?
David has a question here for you, Mark. He says, David is the UK, United Kingdom's head of exopolitics. Yeah? He's a pioneer here in the UK on exopolitics. I don't know if you follow exopolitics, Michael Sala and the rest of them. Well, he said, to what extent is this post-2012 AD time frame a kind of simulation? It's got bizarre aspects that seem that way to him. That is, we ran out of time as a global evolving culture, and this is a weird extended era.
Do you want to take that one, Wallace? I'm gonna have Wallace. Wallace is going to take that question. Here you go,
Wallace. Wallace, you forgot to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, I'm just reading the question now on the Zoom chat. To what extent is this post-2012 AD time frame kind of a simulation? It's got bizarre aspects. We ran out of time as a global evolving culture, and is this a weird extended era? Yeah, so the way we see our current existence is something my father calls, we're living in an anti-civilization where...
Stop you for a moment, Wallace. There's echoing coming out. So you've got several devices too close to each other, I think, to bring about that echoing.
Okay, is this better?
Better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so something my father and grandfather write about is we're living in what they call an anti-civilization. Everybody exists in a matrix-like dynamic where the current society will have you think good is bad and bad is good, where things should be upright, they're upside down. And so we're living in a mode of irrationality and dishonesty, where bad is good and good is bad. And so they identify that's the anti-civilization, which is a matrix-like dynamic and trance that everybody has been confined to and trapped in, especially with their mental modality and their levels of thinking. Growing up from a child, even from birth, the natural dynamic has been to follow something my father and grandfather called a following mode. And that is one of the greatest limiters on the human mind. And so as you grow up, your parents tell you what to do, and then your friends tell you what to do, and then your teachers tell you what to do. And then you get a college and your professors tell you what to do. Then you get a job, then your boss tells you what to do. If you're in the military, your superiors tell you what to do. And your whole life, you're being told what to do. You're being limited in your thinking. People are putting barriers and blinders over your mind and your eyes. And so most people are trapped. And for some other people, uh, they benefit from that manipulation or suppression of others. And so we're living in an anti-civilization. And so the way to escape this is through removing your mysticism, your personal mysticism, and passing what my grandfather coined the nuclear decision threshold, which is, again, humanity faces 2 points, a crossroads in its existence. One, it will either take the irrational and dishonest path to destroy itself through the technology it's built to have that capability to destroy itself, or it can veer in the complete opposite direction, which enters a world of fully integrated honesty and no initiatory force. And so we see the true escape from the anti-civilization or the matrix through the catalyst of the nuclear decision threshold, which is very likely the prime law, which banishes initiatory force from society and government itself.
Wow. Here we see, I couldn't help but marvel at the 3 generations of the progenitors of the neothink system. Yay. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Oh, okay, so we have more questions, right, friends? Shall
Yes.
I'll
read the
shall
next
I
one.
ask Jerry to unmute himself? Jerry, could you
Or I could ask
unmute
for
yourself?
Jerry. Either way.
That's just the people at the helm here at FESIG. There's no outsiders here. Just unmute yourself, brothers and sister Tricia. If you've got anything that you want to chat with Mark about, as I said, we are so lucky and honored that it's the first time he's appearing at another's platform, and it has to be our platform. Go on then, unmute yourself and speak freely.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I have to leave for closing down the shop here at work. But what do you think the election of Trump will bring to the table for the entire world now?
Well, I am very, very relieved at the election results. And I do believe that the aim is at this ruling class corruption that has grown out of control in America, which is, again, why I went public. So I'm very relieved. I do think DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is going to open a lot of eyes. As Wallace was just talking about the matrix and how the general population has been duped, has been like in a trance, because the leaders of any cult, I call the ruling class a cult, the leaders of any cult manipulate our minds for their own benefit, for their own power and glory and wealth. We were just talking about the other day how politicians, elected officials will go into politics worth $50,000 to $100,000, and they'll walk out worth, like Nancy Pelosi, $200 million. How did that happen? They're just on a government salary. So that's the corruption we're doing. And these are the cult leaders, and they are manipulating our minds to believe that they're valuable, that we need them. And I do think that illusion is going to be broken over the next 2 years, particularly with DOGE. I'm very excited about this Department of Government Efficiency. I'm elated about this, and I do think that this cult control over the people is going to break. The brainwashing, the matrix, and all of that is going to greatly go away, the deprogramming of the American people. So to answer your question, I'm elated. I'm elated.
Thanks.
We have an interesting comment sitting here on my desk. Where you began on your neothink, and you went to its neo meaning new. We can wrap this into another part of this is government. And its root word is governmente, which is governing the mind, mente. So it's an interesting thing that your thought, what you're putting together is the conflict between these two ways of thinking, between the neothink and the governmente.
That's a great insight right there. Very well said. And it's like a crossroads here. We can go government control, or we can go self-control. And I write about a lot in my literature, the self-leader. That's the ultimate goal that when I bring members in, I want to turn everyone into a self-leader, where they're no longer influenced by external authorities, such as politicians, agendas, illusions, and particularly for our young people. Our young people get caught up in these destructive thoughts put on them by these agenda-based government officials, and it can destroy people's, particularly vulnerable young people's minds, starting in our schools, and the conditioning that goes on there. So yes, self-thinking, the self-leader, we need to break free of external authority and all the illusions they bring upon us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've got one more here, which is kind of interesting. We take a look at a lot of the researchers that have been doing work in the industrial military complex. And originally, a lot of their discoveries, their inventions were for the benefit of the people, but got taken over by the industrial complex and became destructive. Even the quotes, we've become destroyers of planets, with going into the nuclear age. How do you see this process? Are we allowing our creative inventors and stuff carte blanche to go off and invent things willy-nilly, or is there a way of keeping this idea of destruction forces? An idea can be used for good or evil. A hammer can be used to build a house. It can be used to knock your opponent over the head with. It's this two choices. How do we shape going forward so that we don't have this destructive use of technology?
Right, and that's a great question. The destructive use of technology always comes down to people who are really not creators. They're controllers. People who rise up, for example, in government, it's what I call the lazy, dishonest route to power. They aren't creating values for society. They're getting promoted by an election by, hey, they have the gift of the gab. And so they can all out-talk, others, and they're usually smart people. They're well-educated, but they take this quick elevator ride to power through getting elected, through the gift of the gab, working their way up through government. Now, those people will use creation of technology for their own power over people, because think about this, source of who they are is controlling others. They aren't themselves creating values for society. They are taking values that have been created and controlling them. It's a false, what we call unearned power. And they're the ones who will use it destructively, because the nature of these people are controlling us for their own wealth and power and glory. Now, the true value creators who are creating values for society, they don't have that darkness in their heart. They are creating for good. We just have to not allow the bad people to get a hold of their creations, is what it comes down to. So that's sort of the gist behind this. We have to not allow a ruling class to get control of the creators. Now, in Immortalis, you will have private regulating companies. Like, for example, in my business, publishing. Back in the day when I would advertise, a huge advertising medium for me was magazines and newspapers. Those days are long gone, but there was a private regulatory service called ABC Auditing. And what they would do is they would go in and make sure that magazines, when they said they had 2 million subscribers, that they had 2 million subscribers, because I'm paying the magazine money to reach 2 million people. Now, it's a private regulatory service, but it functions so much better than any government regulatory situation, because every magazine just made sure that they satisfied ABC Auditing. Because if ABC Auditing came out and gave you a bad rating, I would never spend my advertising dollars with that magazine again, and they go out of business, you see. So there will be private regulators not using force, but just using information to spread, and it will keep everything on track. But I think beyond that, people just need to hear that, but beyond that itself, we need to realize, when you get into the psychology of the human mind, people who create values for others do not have a darkness in their heart. People who control others for their own money, power, and glory have the darkness. So it's a matter of the prime law. The prime law, again, removes that power from those who have darkness in their hearts. They can't control us. They can't take our creations and use them against us. The prime law, I actually call it the point of singularity for what I call the civilization of the universe, meaning all conscious civilizations out there had to pass their nuclear decision threshold. So those that are still surviving are all rational civilizations. We still are struggling with irrationality in our civilization. Once we pass this, once we purge irrationality, we will succeed and surpass our nuclear decision threshold. The point of singularity that we must pass through to get there is the prime law. The prime law will remove all those worries that you just expressed, because those with darkness in their hearts won't have the power to use it against us.
Well said. Well, you promised us 1 hour of your time. Now it's getting to be almost 2 hours now.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is a
Oh, you're
bonus to
very
us.
welcome. It's
Yeah.
my honor.
So you're a busy man, as such a workload on your shoulder to spread the benefits to all others on the planet. Franz, shall we just wrap it up now, so we won't take too much of Mark's time and Wallace's as well?
I think that one of the
question.
There's a comment that I want to read the last line of, and I really love it.
Then.
And this is from David again, and it is the side effect of reality insanity? A side effect of reality is insanity.
The side effect of reality, insanity? The side effect of reality, insanity. Huh. I'd have to give that. I'd have to ponder that one. I'd have to ponder that. I don't think I can come up with a good answer for you. Do you want to take a crack at that, Wallace?
Health.
Huh?
David's talking about mental health and addiction issues. Yeah, that is the side effect, which is insanity. Yeah, that is rocketing at the moment. Because
I
people
think
One
I'd
of
have
the
to talk to David a little more deeply to get the full context.
one of the things that was fun about that comment is, in a world of insanity, a sane man is deemed insane, and that was kind of the chuckle that I got on this one.
Yeah, well, and that is actually a very, very good point, because these sane, in quotes, air quotes, leaders of ours, they're really insane when you understand the damage they bring to humanity, the harm and the damage. So, great
Yeah.
Good
point.
place.
Great point.
Right. Mark, you are certainly a unique, creative, futuristic thinker of our times, of a visionary, and you are certainly gifted in cleverly identifying and defining thoughts in consciousness to co-create positive realities, like an awesome alchemist of a sorcerer extraordinaire that you are. Would you leave our audience with your pearls of wisdom of a message that would benefit them in their consciousness? Yeah.
Of course. Well, I would leave you by saying, do spend some time looking into us. We will help change your view of the world from that of external authority to internal authority within yourself. That changes everything for your life. We don't need to give our power away any longer. You can reap all that power, positive, earned power, for yourself, for your self-esteem, and for your happiness. That's my ultimate goal in life, is happiness. Happiness forever. Thank you.
Here. Raise vibrations is the tagline here. Wallace,
Yes.
since you brought your dad here, and we are ever so grateful to you, would you have any last say for this meeting before we close?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us on, Crystal. It was our honor to be here, and we appreciate all of you guys for being here as well, asking some good questions. And it was a really enjoyable experience for us. I know my father enjoyed this, especially as his first time going on somebody else's platform. So thank you guys for having us here. And, I will say, just, pursue your passions, pursue your value creation, which brings you happiness and purpose, and live longer, live healthier, and love more.
Oh, the honor and pleasure is ours. As I said, we are so happy to have the two of you here. And I'm sure your granddad and your dad, of course, must be very proud of you that you're taking after their footsteps here in co-creating Immortalis with them. Thank you so much. So there being no other business, now this 131st FESIG meeting is adjourned to the 132nd meeting on the 8th of January. That's it. The 8th of January, folks, the second Wednesday of the month, 2025. Thank you. Namaste. And thank